Hi, George from Baja Board here. A lot of people have been asking, how the hell do you take the tire off our wheel? Now, I've got a regular plastic wheel here. You might have an alloy one. It doesn't matter. All the same principles would apply. Our wheels are quite tight. The 10-inch ones are quite tight fitting onto the rim. You might have some difficulty initially, but once you've seen this video, I think you're going to have a much easier go at it. So the first thing you want to do is mise en place, some prep work. You want to get this tire nice and warm. I don't mean go and do a blowtorch to it. If it's summertime, just leave it out in the sun for a few minutes, let it warm up, nice 30 sort of degrees, or I think it's 85, 90 Fahrenheit for you guys in America. If it's in winter, the rubber tends to get quite rigid. So maybe take it into a bathroom or somewhere there's a heater and just leave it there and get this up to a nice warm room temperature. Make life easy for yourself. Next, let me introduce you to the tools that you will need. Now, this is not strictly the case, but I use a 7mm and a 6mm ring wrench, using these to dig out the tires. You don't necessarily have to use these. If you have a small enough tire plier, I think they're called, you can use that. No, they're commonly also found for bicycle tires, but make sure it's small and make sure you've got a metal one. Don't get one of those plastic ones because they will snap. And if you care to use this, you can get some rubber lubrication. And this is more so for later on when you go to put the tire back on the rim. Now, I've done about 500 of these tires, so I've got pretty good hang strength, but so I don't use this myself, but you might want to get this. Don't buy any kind of lube that might actually damage the tire, right? So use fit for purpose lubrication. Step number 1, deflate the tire. And make sure it's properly deflated. If you just press it down and let it run, you might still have some air entrained inside the tubes. Just give it a good press. You can hear it's still coming out. Once the tube has been deflated, you should be able to pretty easily press this in and get access to the bead and the tire, the rim. Next, we are going to start putting this into the tire bead. Now, I start from the opposite side of the valve, and I'm using a round tip, right? A round rim tip. You can use a hardened teaspoon, something small, this sort of size, with a smooth round edge. You don't want to go in with anything sharp for obvious reasons. You can puncture the tube very easily. Having said that, if your tube's already punctured and there's a lost cause, feel free to go in with something a bit sharper because you have to, you're going to throw the tube away anyway. But for a regular tire change, use something that's round and smooth. So if we take this as a clock, 12, 6, I'm going to start with my first insertion at about, what's this? It's about 11 o'clock or 10, 11 o'clock. So I will put this in here and I'm going to apply this out. Now my second one, I'm going to go in at around 1 to 2 o'clock. Right, so once you have 2, they start to hold themselves in place. So I've left about 5 centimeters there. Now I take this one out. This is going to stay in place more or less, and I'm going to move a bit further across and do the same thing again. At this point, you can try to yank this off, but I'm just going to go a bit further and go like this. As you can see, it's starting to come out now. And the more the bead comes out, the easier it's going to be to get more and more of this out. At this point, you basically got half the tire off. Now the question is, how do you get the other side off? Put it this way, go in with your hand and just take the tube out of the tire first. You don't have to take the tube entirely out. The valve is still inside the rim. Turn this back around, hold onto the rim, push on the tire, and bang. All 3 of these things should be separated. Now, at this point, if you've got a pump, you might want to check, just pump this tube up a bit just to make sure you haven't punctured it by accident. Now that's all apart, we now have to put on the new tire. Step 1, tube aside. Don't worry about the tube. Step 2, get your orientation right. Just make sure the tread pattern is going in the direction that you want. 90 degrees, and you can use a lot of leverage to just shove the rim in the tube. Now, get a tire wall, just expand that baby out. Now, I'm coming in to rotate this clockwise, and at the same time, I'm using my fingers to go into the tire and pushing the wall over the inner side of the rim. Once that's done, you can literally pull the tire through. Now, I'm doing this on a table, but normally you do this against your leg or something, which you have a lot more leverage to pull this thing through. And also this time, if you want, you can also spray a bit of lube on the contact surface just to make life a bit easier for yourself. So you want to get to this point, which is the outer facing part of the rim is outside the tire. Step 2, we are going to start putting the tube into the tire. Don't put the valve in yet, just go around, just very roughly. Shove everything in. Now, as you can see, this looks a bit of a mess. You've got the tube sitting not even on the rim, just all the way around. At this point, I want to put the valve through the hole. So I'm pushing this in, 2 fingers. And I'm using my 2 fingers to try to find the spot. And make sure you push your valve all the way through. You've got to get it to this point. And I'm just going to use my fingers and go along the circumference of the rim. So I'm going around a couple times just to make sure I haven't left any bits of the tube out. Okay, so now you just look inside. You will see the tube is kind of in the rim, on the rim. The valve is in. Before you start to push this in, look on the other side and look at this clearance. You want to make the rim go down as far as you can. So just pull that sucker down like this. Make sure you don't see any of that tire wall there. Just pull all the way down. And as you pull that down, on the other side, you can start to use your thumbs to fit the bead into the rim. Again, like when we start taking it off, I start on the opposite side of the valve. And I'm going to just... So once you've got most of the bead into the rim, the more you get in, the harder it will be to fit the rest of this in. You can try to do it by hand if you've got really strong thumbs. Pretty difficult. If you happen to have a tire lever, a bike tire lever, you can try it that way. But I like to just do it against my leg using a bit of leverage. So I'm holding it like this with my hand here, and I'm going to use the fat part of my hand just pushing against the tire wall. So, and the last bit of the tire should just pop on like that. Right? A lot easier to use the leverage use your body weight to do it, like in martial arts, as opposed to trying to just use pure strength with your thumb. And there you have it. That's how you change a tire. And once everything's back on, pump her back up, close the tube, and you're good to go again.